When I was 19, I went to work for the ABC, and I got signed with Andy Gibb when I was 19 years old, and didn't have a clue what I was doing really. I must have been doing it okay because I had the gig, but I didn't really know what I was doing. And in fact, we were recording at ATA, and the drummer Dave Tilley, he used to be in a band called I can't remember now. They're a commercial band, Mr. Something or Other. Dave sadly did know from a motorbike accident, but he came up to me in the recordings and he said, "You don't really know what you're doing, do you?" I said, and so I went to get some lessons, and I've been so lucky in that department. John Robinson took me on. You had to do an audition to get lessons with John, and I'm still friendly with John to this day. Although John's not friendly with a lot of people, I suppose. And you look at a band like that, I mean, Black Feather were so ahead of their time in this country, really. Not just his guitar work, but as a band. And I was fortunate enough to have dinner with Neil Johns recently, actually, and talk about all that stuff way back then. But John gave me an understanding of what I was already doing and took me up to a step that I probably wouldn't have been able to get to without him. This is Oscar, he wants to join in.
I think they played at the Basement the other week with Harry, Black Feather.
Yeah, they did, but not with John.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think John's very happy about that, but then John doesn't want to do it either. So, I mean, but Neil does, so. Neil's talking about doing more stuff actually, sort of doing a bit of a tour. I don't know what will come of that, so who knows, maybe our dinner conversation and our little jam afterwards might prove some sort of fruit. Half the time that's it, you just meet somebody through somebody else and you have a bit of a jam and it clicks and it ends up being a show. But yeah, so John took me to a place that I couldn't have got to otherwise. And although I did graphic design in between, that set the path for me for playing professional music. And I haven't stopped.
And what are some of the venues that used to be around back when you used to play that aren't here anymore, like Selena's and stuff like that?
Well, the obvious ones like Selena's, the big gigs in Sydney, or even the smaller gigs like the Annandale Hotel was always a kick-ass venue. But
Brights? Did you do Brights at Manlyvale? That wasn't a bad place.
Yeah, and we did DY and all those sort of Northern Shore gigs. In fact, there's a poster over there for Tough Luxury of the Queen playing an Explorer with a Tough Luxury tattoo on her shoulder. And we didn't have an agency then, we didn't have Warner Brothers, we didn't have any of that stuff. So we did that artwork, cut and pasted ourselves in my cardboard and silk screened the posters ourselves. And the little bit of red on the Tough Luxury tattoo, we did each and every poster, that little bit of red was done by hand. And I remember playing at DY at the hotel one night, and Stuart called them a pack of shark fuckers, and you could have heard a pin drop. I guess they didn't like that. And we were always in danger of pulling out guitar leads and running with the things he'd say on stage, honestly. And he whipped up a copy of our poster, which was that, and I don't know where he got it from or where it was or why he had it near him. And he said something about they're a cool pub and we really liked them, and everyone wanted us to sign the poster, and he's so glad they liked it. And he didn't know what they'd think of the next poster because it had a picture of Princess Di giving head to the corgis. And we went into the next song, and we had a lot of those stupid moments on stage where Stuart was borderline about to incite a riot and get us, attacked on stage physically, but it never actually happened.
And what style of music were you playing with that band?
I guess it was hard rock, but it was melodic, Tough Luxury. I read a review recently that it was based on boogie rock, and I didn't really see that, but again, I listened back to that sort of stuff, and I guess maybe to some extent, Without Warning was the big single. I still think that's a great song, and I don't think that early stuff we did dates because we weren't trying to be anything other than what we were. We weren't trying to meet a market trend or anything like that. And I think it's people that do that tend to date, because whatever they produce gets stuck in that market trend of that period. But we never tried to do that. Later on, when we had big agencies and management, I think we started to fall into trying to look like Bon Jovi and stuff like that, and maybe some of that era is regrettable. But you get caught up in it, and it's easy to look back with hindsight, but at the time it's all exciting, and you know, sometimes I guess you're just really not in control.
And how old were you then?
At that point in Tough Luxury, I would have been late 20s. Yeah.
And you're writing to music by then? That's what you want to do? Or
it's all I ever really wanted to do, was play guitar and write songs.
Or
Sorry?
Were you still working at the ABC? Or?
No. That I left the ABC. See, a wiser head, if I was older, would have prevailed and sort of tried to keep that job and do the tour with Andy. But I just cut all bonds and just went with that. It was, I mean, I was 19. What did I know? You know, I just went for it, and I've been writing it. I'm still writing now. You know, so, and I try to encourage my students to write and record. I got recording software here, and if they got something interesting, I say, well, instead of doing a listen to that, let's put it down, and so you can take the CD home and have a listen to what you've just done, and then project it.
And what about the bands in the future? Who do you want to play with coming out?
Well, I'm trying to wangle an interview with Denny Hines. That'd be interesting, because if I could do something now, it would be soul, funk, rock, blues, that kind of area, I guess. And I know that's what she does well.
And what's she doing now?
She's doing nothing at the moment. We have a mutual friend, and trying to organise a sort of a lunch or something sometime over the next couple of weeks and see if there's some potential there. I mean, I've been playing with Rick Lum up in Sydney recently, but it's a cover band, you know. So I don't mind doing that, but at the end of the day, I don't care if I play less, but I play something that's original, and something that's. I mean, if the soul funk band came together, you would probably pick half a dozen known songs, like Chain of Fools or something like that, you know. Maybe give it a bit more attitude, and change the songs a little bit. Like so many songs, I mean, I've done stupid things. I took A Whole Lot of Love. I mean, I wouldn't seriously do that, but I do things like that to amuse myself. Or I took Imagine, not actually my favourite kind of thing. I mean, it's a brilliant and well-regarded song. But if you take the basics of the song, it's very on the beat. It's very major. So I took that and I thought, well, how can I change it? So I put it to the relative minor and put it off beat. It kind of works in a different but dark kind of way. So if any of the half a dozen covers you took, you'd rearrange them so that they take on a personal.
Finish sound there, isn't it? Short note top of.
Oh well, you know, all that stuff takes me back. I mean, Matthew and I used to jam at parties in Cremorne, and he used to play my Les Paul, and there were lots of strange things going on. I remember there was a horse at one of the parties, like in the house. And I don't know what state of mind we're in, because my then girlfriend, who was his later partner, I don't know how that all works out either, Annie, who ended up being with Doc actually as well, she came in and she goes, "Rabbit, horse." And I go, "I know it's a horse, I can see." I mean, the fact that it was in the lounge room was probably something that should have been thought about, but...
And you're talking about Doc before. Tell me about how you got to meet Doc.
And I met Doc early on through mutual friends, Peter Calvito, who I did an album for called the Flying Calvito Brothers, which had Doc and Bjarne Olin from Divinals and myself, and Piers Crocker, who's a well-known luthier in Sydney, but he's a great bass player as well. there's a whole bunch of people. It was a bit of a love job, but fantastic album. It's called 2600 Moons, and prior to that, I had met Doc through Annie, and I was in a band called Fetish, and we had taken one of Peter's songs, which ended up on 2600 Moons, called Freedom from Hunger. And the Freedom from Hunger campaign wanted to use it as their launch single. So the band I was, even though I'd recorded it with Peter already, the band I was with at that point, a short-lived band called Fetish, featuring a fantastic English singer called David Crompton, who was doing new and fabulous things in Sydney at the moment. We, and some of the guys from Tough Luxury, we did a launch at Martin Place in Sydney, in the plaza area there, and set up during the morning, and so everyone going to get their morning tea and coffee and stuff is walking past seeing all this stuff happening. And so come lunchtime, we had this huge, it was like an arena crowd, and the traffic was stopped on the main road there, and it was filmed, and it was on the news and 60 Minutes that night and all sorts of stuff. It was great. But Doc introduced us that day, which was really nice. I still got photos of it. I wish I'd filmed it actually. It should have been around there. And although at 60 Minutes and the news would probably have it, wouldn't they? Because they filmed him doing it. I should inquire. And been a friendship ever since then, or it was, until recently. And even though we played together a little bit here and there, mostly together as friends. I mean, I remember dinner table conversations with other groups of friends, and Bernard and I would start talking about history because they had a deep love of history, particularly like World War II history and what have you. And we'd look up and all of a sudden everyone else is gone. And talk about history or politics and they'd all go. And he was just a wonderful man. I don't think I ever heard Bernard swear, ever. He was a complex man, he was a stubborn man, and he would not be bent, not by anyone, if he didn't think that was the way he wanted to go. It wouldn't matter who you were or what you were offering, he would not go that way. And I guess the one thing you could always say about Bernard, he was a gentleman.
So you went to the last show at the MO2?
Yeah. It's funny because I'd just been down to Melbourne to go to a Joe Satriani master class, and I drove up fast and furious the next day, stopped here to get some clothes, and then kept driving up to Sydney, and I got booked on the way. It's about the second time only I've ever been booked because I was in a hurry to get to Newtown, and it was an overwhelming event. I know he was overwhelmed. He was, that so many people would put out for him. The audience, the other musicians, even Peter Garrett, for goodness sake. I mean, when's the last time you ever saw Peter Garrett on a stage? Just, it was a wonderful outturning. And that moment he walked on stage, looking so elegant, saying nothing at first, because he was quite sick. He just wanted to thank them.